we're actually in an area that is a timber sale. It's not being logged yet. At some point it will be. It'll be thin, similar to the logging that you saw on the road on the left side as we were driving in. That's part of the No Whiskey timber sale. And Bark was active in working on that timber sale, and we did get the Forest Service to drop 335 acres of it. Not too much farther over this way is the newly designated Roaring River Wilderness. Probably about a half mile, 3/4 of a mile through the woods. And so we got a lot of units and a lot of partial units dropped that were along the ridge line there and in other spots where there was older forest. This forest had a fire about 19,000 acres up on Ladee Flats about 100 years ago. And so these trees aren't huge, not old growth. And they have come in here before and thinned it out. You can tell it's pretty thin already. And then they're going to come in and thin out even more. So that's how the Forest Service does this stuff. And there's, of course, all sorts of issues with logging. We can talk about it. We're not going to get too much into that. But we're going to talk mostly about mushrooms today, fungi. And you are surrounded by fungi. You're standing on fungi. You're breathing in the spores of millions and millions of spores every single waking minute of your life. And especially now that you're out here and it's moist and there's all these mushrooms out here, you're intaking millions of spores. Every single needle on these Douglas fir trees, that little 1-inch long needle, has a tiny little hyphae of a fungus that helps the tree produce nitrogen. Every single square inch of the soil has millions of miles of fungal hyphal threads. Every single tree in this forest is interconnected through this underground fungal network. This forest would not be here without the fungi, and the fungi would not be here without this forest. Every single tree seedling that sprouts in the Pacific Northwest and generally around the world requires, within 24 hours of its little root going into the soil, a connected web from a fungus. And that fungus is basically, it's a root system, if you think about it that way. And it connects to that root of the tree, and the fungus supplies that tree with tons of water, especially in our ecosystem here where we have about a 3-month drought in summer, the prime growing season. So the fungus supplies, it's called a mycorrhizal connection, where the fungus connects with the roots of the tree. And then the tree sends down about 50% of its photosynthates to its roots. And about 90% of that 50% goes to the mushroom, goes to the fungus. So there's this interconnection between the fungi and the forest. Every single terrestrial plant on this planet that they have so far studied requires and has the grass in your lawn, the laurel hedge, all these non-native things that we have in our neighborhoods and the native things that we have, all absolutely require this interconnected fungal web at its root level. So if you really get into mushrooms, like, you can go crazy. Especially depending on which one. But, and nobody knows about it, right? Like, when I say the word fungi, fungi is the overarching name for this family. And the mushroom is actually like an apple on a tree. It's the fruiting body of that fungal network, that root system underground. So when we are picking mushrooms, we're basically picking like an apple off of a tree. And they have done many, many studies, especially up here on Mount Hood, on chanterelle picking. And it was a 20-year study where they had all these plots, and they picked every single chanterelle in that plot. 100% pick, 80% pick, 60%, 50%, 20%, etc. And then had all these control plots where they didn't pick any. They found absolutely no difference in 20 years of the amount of production of mushrooms in those plots. So you really don't have to worry about over-harvesting. However, just like anything, there are these unwritten, mushroomer rules, right? You should always leave some. Other critters use them. Obviously, this ecosystem requires them. So it's a good thing to leave some. You don't have to take them all. We just drove through 20 miles of habitat. We could have stopped anywhere along this road and picked tons of mushrooms. And even though we've got 40 people today, and we're going to go in maybe a 4 or 5 acre area, we're still going to leave mushrooms. Even the ones that you leave behind, you're going to walk over some that you won't even see. So in reality, the amount of mushrooms that are out here is uncountable, really. Oregon exports 3 million pounds a year of chanterelles to Europe. Just Oregon. And 3 million pounds is nothing compared to what's out here. That's fresh. Those things are picked on a Friday afternoon, sold to the seller Friday night, and on somebody's dinner plate Saturday afternoon.
Do you have mushroom recipes on your website?
BARC's website, no, but we should.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And actually,
I think everybody should do that.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. It wouldn't hurt if people had a favorite mushroom recipe that they submitted to BARC. There's definitely, there's all these different levels of mushroom toxicity. Deadly, obviously kills you. Toxic, causes all sorts of perhaps liver damage or eyesight problems or whatever. Deadly, toxic. Poisonous is less than toxic. So poisonous mushroom, you might throw up, you might be dizzy, you might have diarrhea, all these kind of things. So there's all these different grades. And the mushrooms that we're picking today, and again I'll vet them all before you leave, there are no other lookalikes out here that are toxic. It's poisonous. So it will make you extremely upset for a day or two and, stay at home on the toilet. Yeah.
And they're here too.
Small ones go, don't pick those.
I actually, my rule is especially with the chanterelles, like this is about the smallest I would go, an inch in diameter cap, and less I leave. So this is about the smallest I would go. The heads, yeah.
I have a question. What was that about the poisonous fall chanterelles? Is that what we're picking then?
No. These are actual true chanterelles. I don't know I guess I'll get in this. Has anybody ever seen or not seen a chanterelle?
I haven't in the wild, so I need to
Okay,
see it.
so you can come on up. This is a chanterelle.
Okay. So
They're orange capped, and they have these really thick ridges underneath the cap. It's where the spores are produced, and those ridges run down the stem. Some of them will go down, half the length of the stem or just a little bit, but they all run down the stem at least a little bit.
So that's what you're looking for them to run down the stem a little bit.
Right, and the fact that if you touch them, they're ridges. They're not like gills. I didn't pick a gilled mushroom.
And what does the poisonous one look like compared to that?
Fairly similar, but much bigger than this one, obviously, and has kind of a hole in the center and little, they're called fibrils. How do you describe it?
Like hairs
Like little hairs. on the
coming out of
inside.
where?
Out of the top of the cap. And it's more funnel shaped, so it has a hole in the center.
Are they the same color?
Yeah. They'll fool you, for sure. But once you see them, and I'll be walking around with you. I didn't see any out here on Monday when I was here. Doesn't mean they're not here yet. They're not here now.
How quick do mushrooms pop up?
They're actually one of the fastest growing organisms on Earth. And there are some mushrooms that are up and gone in 24 hours. They come up and then they literally melt.
No kidding.
Yeah. They deliquesce. And these ones will last for weeks. Chanterelles, they take a good long time to actually get bigger. This one, I was here on Monday, and it obviously wasn't ever going to get bigger. Some chanterelles are just plain small. Some are massive. So we'll find probably all different sizes up here. This one I can tell was never going to get any bigger than this because I was here on Monday and saw it.
If it gets down to say 26 degrees Fahrenheit tonight, will that do them?
Yeah, mushrooms need water, and at least in the case of fall fruiting mushrooms, colder temperatures. So that temperature drop is no problem.
Below freezing they can handle?
Yeah.
How long will the season they be prolific in this?
Literally until the snow flies or we get a whole bunch of freezing weather that is pretty solid for 3 or 4 days. Okay. I have picked dozens of pounds of frozen chanterelles and hedgehogs and slimfoots, and they defrost perfectly.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So it can still come out when it's freezing cold.
1, 2.
there's two chanterelles. They're the same ones. Which one would you keep and take home with you?
Can you hold those higher?
The one without the mold on it.
Without the mold, okay. So here's the thing. If in doubt, throw it out. You could trim off that mold if you wanted to do that. There's enough mushrooms in the world that you don't need to do that, and you really shouldn't do that. I don't know if that mold is toxic. You know, it could be. There's oftentimes a white filamentous, like on bread or even cheese, that'll grow on the underside of the caps. So you want to look at all of your mushrooms before you start slicing them up to cook. Again, if in doubt, throw it out. If you get home and you see in your basket a whole bunch of chanterelles that I've vetted, right, before you've left here, and you're looking at it and you're like, that one doesn't really look like the other ones, throw it out. It doesn't hurt, right? Who wants to die for a nice meal? So, and that's true for all, you know, mushroom hunting. There's mycological societies that people can join. There's the, you know, the annual bark mushroom hike. If you're really into it, I can put you on my mushroom list, and you know, I go out probably 50 or 60 times a year mushroom hunting, and I take tons of people out. I have no problem showing people spots because, again, the entire world is mushroom habitat, and there's millions and billions of pounds of mushrooms, and especially chanterelles out here. So we probably won't see this out here because it's more associated with older forest. But this is a logger's nemesis and a Forest Service nemesis. This is Phaeolus schweinitzii.
All right.
And it produces a butt rot, a brown butt rot in trees.
Oh.
Awesome. Yeah, and you'll find this on the ground at the base of trees. It's also a great mushroom if you're into dyeing. Dyeing wool. Yeah, it's not poisonous. And it produces yellows and golds and all these different colors if you're into, you know, dyeing stuff. There's a bunch of dye mushrooms, both kinds of dye mushrooms. And this one is great in many ways because it, you know, it kills trees, but it is amazing for soil health and soil productivity. Of course, mushrooms, you know, help create soil. One of the first things that comes back after a fire in this region are morel mushrooms. And they really like all that burst of nutrients from that charcoal and the dead trees and all that, and they fruit in unbelievable abundance after a fire. You know, there's been a bunch of fires in Oregon this year already. So go to those fires in spring, generally in May. It has to have some rain, right? And in the spring mushrooms, they need a little warmer temperature. So they need, you know, soil temperatures of, you know, 55, 60 degrees for the morels. So you want to wait in spring when there's some rain, and then a little bit higher soil temperatures for the morels to fruit.
May?
Yeah, May, June, July. I wouldn't really start looking before May.
What about truffles?
Truffles are out here. They're mostly a winter mushroom. They're actually not a mushroom. They're fungus. The truffle is a fruiting body of the fungus. And they're really hard to find unless you have a pig or you have a squirrel on a leash. But when I'm out in the woods, you'll see these little divots. And that's where the squirrel has dug a hole, smelled the ripe truffle, and dug out that truffle. And so whenever I see that, I'll go and dig around a little bit and see if I find one. And I found a few, but you know, digging for truffles is really disturbing the soil, the whole humus layer. And you know, you always put it back. Same with picking chanterelles. If you make a big hole in the ground, you want to, you know, put that stuff back. So I don't do as much truffle hunting just because I'm not that good at it.
So how far down do you cut the mushrooms?
Well, with picking these chanterelles and the slimfoots and the hedgehogs that we're going to find out here, the accepted way to do it is to grab the stem above it, or you know, if it's a big mushroom, you pick it on the side and twist and pull out.
Oh.
Yeah.
So you don't need your knife
Yes, you do. You need your knife because you're going to cut the butt.
immediately?
Yeah.
How come?
If you put all these dirty mushrooms in your basket, that dirt is just spreading over all your other mushrooms and making them twice as hard to clean. Plus, you're going to cut that off at home anyway. And this forest needs that biomass.
Recycle it. Yeah.
So might as well leave it here.
And why do you not just cut it?
Commercial pickers cut them because they want to be fast and move. They haven't really found much difference between cutting and twisting and pulling and then cutting. But the general, Mushroom Mycological Society idea is that little stem or stump could get infected from, some mold, which would then kill the mycelium. So it's just accepted to twist, pull, and then cut the butt.
Transferring from one to another.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, any other questions?
Yeah, if you accidentally happen to pick a bunch of poisonous or toxic mushrooms and you have them mixed in with your other mushrooms, could it make your other mushrooms toxic?
No.
Okay.
You're breathing in, more than likely, millions of toxic mushroom spores, and that doesn't hurt you. You can handle the Amanita muscarias, the death angel, all these different mushrooms. Yeah. No, there's some great names and great, physical effects or bad physical effects. And you can even taste some and spit it out. You're not going to die. You just shouldn't eat a meal of it.
I'm a true American. I stay quiet and collect my pay. I'm a true American. I stay quiet and collect my pay. I don't wanna rock the boat. I don't wanna rock the boat. I'm a true American. I don't ask any questions. I'm a true American. I stay quiet and collect my pay. I don't ask any questions. I don't wanna make any waves. I don't wanna rock the boat. I just wanna collect my pay. I'm a true American. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm a true American. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't get
I found more fall chanterelles than chanterelles.
Really? So you sound like you know a little bit about it.
Yeah. Here's
what you got here?
the pick of the day.
Oh, all right. Now, is that a chanterelle?
Pretty sure it is.
Looks like it to me. Yeah.
But I did find a whole mound of fall chanterelles that I had a hard time figuring out whether they were false or real.
Probably if he looks them over, Did you bring a couple of them along to have him check him out?
Yeah, I'll have them.
All right.
I have 4, but it'll be a small soup tonight.
How are you going to cook those up?
Saute them with butter.
It's a nice yellowfoot mushroom.
Oh, edible?
It's edible, yeah. You can make a good pate out of them.
All right. Is that what she's finding right here too?
That's what she's finding as well, our yellowfoot. They're in the chanterelle family.
They're in the chanterelle family?
Yes. And it has the same thing underneath.
Oh, yeah. So that's the same kind of...
The same type of design that chanterelle has.
Okay.
And then this one is called a Zeller's bolete.
Is that a good one?
It's edible. It's not incredible.
It's
really?
porcini?
The boletes, the king bolete is the porcini,
Okay.
and this one doesn't get that.
Years ago
Great
when I was
name.
hunting, I saw one that had a head on that big around.
Oh yeah,
That's
they
amazing.
can get massive. And these grow strictly out of old dead wood, and they have a layer underneath the cap that is just full of tubes. You see all those little holes, and that's where the spores come out.
Amazing.
And it's an edible one. It's just not. It's not that great. No, that's a russula.
Not edible, right?
No, not that one.
And this is not it either. That's gills, not ridges,
No,
right?
though this is the one that will fool people out here. It's bright orange, right?
Oh, so it's all kind of
It actually has
open top too?
gills that run down the stalk, like
Gills,
the chanterelle.
Uh-huh.
But these ones you can wiggle back and forth.
Oh.
So these are actually gills. And on the chanterelle,
Feel
they
it,
have really
those are
thick
gills.
ridges.
Yeah.
Okay.
Blades.
no
is
good.
what
Oh, but
they
that's
call
not a
them,
chanterelle.
or
Right,
ridges.
that's the false one.
And so that one,
Yeah.
it's not the false one. It's just a lookalike that
A lookalike.
will fool people. This is an older russula, and it is probably the same mushroom,
Do you mind if
the
So
same
it's
same
edible?
species.
I handle one of yours?
Yeah,
for a second?
go ahead.
These ones are actually edible. Again, they're not very incredible. They're called the shrimp russula.
Okay.
Ursula jarempalina. And you can try it.
Okay. As long as it's not gonna.
Yeah.
hurt
This
me or
one,
Kill me.
this one
Yeah.
is more than likely the same as this one, but I wouldn't eat it.
Oh.
Because this one, the color has washed out from the rain or from age.
Okay.
So I can't be 100% sure that it's the
Okay.
same. It more than likely is.
But, yeah, no.
If in
when
doubt, throw it out. The violet courtnerius. And it has actually also gotten washed out. And here's a good sign of that looks like it could have been a squirrel or a mouse or something who nibbled on it. Most of the chanterelles that I've ever picked in my life, I've never seen anything eating them. And a lot of mushrooms don't get eaten by animals or critters or whatnot. But
I've
this
seen
one-
bugs on them.
Yeah, lots of bugs and stuff like that.
So-
But this one obviously it looks like, a really small rodent was chewing on it. And the violet courtnerius, it's a gorgeous mushroom. Again, this one's washed out a little bit. Not edible.
Not edible.
Is what, sunfoot?
Slimfoots.
Oh, slimfoots.
Because they have a slim stem. They're a type of chanterelle. Cantarellus infundibuliformis.
All right.
And winter chanterelle, they'll grow up until like the last frost, last freeze. And they just grow in massive quantities on dead wood. And they're a great mushroom.
He was just finding some yellowfoot. He says they're also a chanterelle.
Yellowfoot's the same thing.
Oh, it's the same
people
thing.
call this yellowfoot, slimfoot, funnel chanterelle, winter chanterelle, all these different names for it.
Thank
Did you get this off a tree?
Yep.
This is the, what is the Latin? This is the angel wing, and it's an edible. It's pretty good. Yep, exactly. And here's even better how it's an angel wing.
Oh,
It looks like a wing. And you got it off of a dead stump or a down log or something like that. And it's a decent edible. It's like the oyster mushroom, which I don't think has a lot of flavor. The chanterelles have a bunch of flavor, and these guys have a bunch of flavor. These ones are kind of like tofu.
Like that fish, that tapioca, what's that fish? That farm fish?
Tilapia.
Tilapia, it's the
Yeah.
tilapia.
Yeah, but certainly fine to eat. Nothing wrong with it. And when we get back to the car, I'll talk about if you've never eaten chanterelle, if you've never eaten that species of mushrooms, don't mix it with other ones. So eat those ones separately. And then wait for the next day to see if your body likes that mushroom. There's a whole bunch of people out there, 5 or 10%, who can't eat chanterelles. Just their body, they don't like it. So that's when you try new species of mushrooms. You're going to find 5 or 6 species today. Don't throw them all together until you know that you're okay with angel wings and you're okay with chanterelles and you're okay with slimfoots.
Okay.
Because some people just can't eat an edible mushroom that 99% of the rest of the planet can, just for whatever reason, their body chemistry.
Well, just like peanuts.
Yeah, exactly.
kill
Yeah,
somebody.
it's just like, it might not be that you're allergic to it, but for some reason your body doesn't like it.
Can you catch that gleam that happens?
Yeah, yeah.
It's like an optical illusion almost.
The Hydnum repandum.
The what?
Hydnum repandum.
Hydnum repandum. Okay.
And it has these, it's hard to see on this, but these really tiny stalagmites. Okay. Stalagmites that hang down where the spores are produced, which also gives it the hedgehog look, little spines on a hedgehog.
Do they get bigger?
Yeah. The ones here are pretty small. I've picked some hedgehogs that were about 3/4 of a pound.
Wow.
They're massive.
Really? So that's a hedgehog. I've
yeah.
seen some of these already today, and I
Okay.
didn't think they were
Yeah,
in.
pick 'em.
Wow.
They're good.
Okay.
It's the first one
And
I've
where
seen.
did you find them? Right here?
Well, that one
So
was
you would
kicked
think there
over.
would
You
be
can have it.
another one. Cool.
You call this a hedgehog?
Yep, the Hydnum repandum.
The what?
Hydnum repandum.
Hydnum repandum. Okay.
And it has these, it's hard to see on this, but these really tiny stalagmites. Okay. Stalagmites that hang down where the spores are produced, which also gives it the hedgehog look, little spines on a hedgehog.
Do they get bigger?
Yeah. The ones here are pretty small. I've picked some hedgehogs that were about 3/4 of a pound.
Wow.
They're massive.
Really? So that's a hedgehog. I've
yeah.
seen some of these already today, and I
Okay.
didn't think they were in.
Yeah, pick 'em.
Wow.
They're good.
Okay.
It's the first one
And
I've
where
seen.
did you find them? Right here?
Well, that one
So
was
you would
kicked
think there
over.
would
You
be
can have it.
another one. This is, I don't know, a really good one. That's what he said.
Sure
Because
pretty.
the gills go like this, and they stop right at the
Oh, yeah.
stem. and it's open.
And you got a lot of little bitties there. Huh?
These and this one, I don't know what this one is either, but he said it's edible too. Oh,
There's another russula, and I don't know what species it is. There's, again, hundreds of species of russulas.
Those are those big dark colored ones that we saw a little earlier?
The dark purple ones, and there's red ones, and brown ones, and all these different colors. And I, basically, you're lucky if you can figure out that it's a russula, and then getting it down to the species name is a lot harder.
So it's similar to the ones that are on the logs, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Somebody should pick those.
So what are you picking there?
Slim Jim.
Slim Jims. Well, that's close.
You and I are both the same. We are all one people. Open hearts and open minds. We want to be peaceful. We all live in one big world. All the boys and all the girls. You and I are both the same. We are all one people.
How you doing there?
I'm doing great.
All right, that's where I talked to you already. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, how many you got there?
Getting the fresh air here. Just found another. It's kind of batted up a little bit, but it's nice coloring, and I'll wash it up as much as I can and use it in tonight's soup.
What is it?
So it's a chanterelle. This one's a little more yellow than the older ones that I found earlier. But I'm pretty sure it's a chanterelle, and it's just one of the few that I found on this side of the hill.
So you found some on the other side towards the creek more? Then.
Yeah, I found more over there. I think that there are some here, but this one was actually kind of hidden, as they often are.
Yeah.
Like the first time, maybe you would throw that out because you weren't 100% sure. But the more you practice, the more you can, tell that it is.
Okay.
And they get big, like.
They will get,
what
up
they-
to, like here's a really good
Pretty
size
big
one.
one.
And so when they get older, they get all convoluted on the top, and that hole gets more pronounced. And those blades are really running down the stem. These ones will, they're just smaller. And they are running down the stem a little bit too. But see, if you looked at those two, like you said, maybe that's not the same thing. But it is.
The queen of mushroom hunting, huh?
Yeah. Working on it. We found an expert.
You move around to get those, or you get them all in one spot?
Oh, all over.
All over?
No more than 2 or maybe 3 at one place.
okay, so probably, if in doubt.
Yeah, I would
throw it
need it. I mean, they really should.
Yeah.
The one that's
out.
edible.
Look like that.
Are those edible?
Yeah, see, and the other,
Yeah.
even the underside.
but you're not
does-
sure if that's
the
edible.
right
Yeah,
color.
and this one stains green. This one looks like it's staining purple.
Purple.
It's a Lactarius species.
You got dinner?
That's almost a meal in itself.
Until it cooks down.
Well, yeah, there's that. But then I got these.
These are russulas, and that could be the shrimp russula, but it's so washed out. It's supposed to be real dark purple. I wouldn't eat it. I couldn't tell if it is or not. This one probably is the same, though it's really brown, but it has that pinking. But I don't play around even. This is another bleeding ink or milk cap. It's not really putting on any milk because it's old. But this is the one that was in that picture that has these zones, these kind of rings. It's not as pronounced on this one. It's a good edible. This one probably will pass its prime. Short-stemmed, white-stalked russula.
Okay.
And these can get massive. If you saw Joe's, it's huge,
Yeah, I
like
saw
a foot across.
Yeah.
They're an impressive mushroom, but not edible for humans. This is Indian pipe. It's a saprophytic plant. It grows on the roots of trees. No, it's in its own class. It's not really a fungus.
So epiphyte, was it? No.
Saprophyte.
Saprophyte, yeah.
So it consumes energy from a tree root or a salal or Oregon grape or something like that. And that one is some sort of Cortinaria. So you can see this kind of cobwebby section on there, which is a Cortina. Not most of the, I don't think any of the Cortinaria seeds are edible. But a beautiful mushroom.
What is that?
I think it's some sort of Cortinarius because of this real fine webbing. It's kind of a Cortina. but not edible. Have lots of deformities like this where the actual gill structure, blade structure underneath pops out on top.
What about the wind? Could the wind blow the spores?
No, yeah, the wind blows the spores, but all mushrooms are like if you see a dead tree and it's got a conch coming out of it, and it's coming out here and it's going down to the ground, it falls over. If that conch is still alive, it'll put up a whole nother shelf pointing downward. And I've seen that 3 times where it fell 3 times and it had like...
Wolf had a big white one. Where is he?
Oh, he threw it out.
And this one is called an elfin saddle.
No.
False chanterelle, right?
Too bad.
And a lot of these are edible. I don't think we're going to find many here. This first one I've seen here. And this one, the white on this is actually, this cap is where the spores are coming out. And it's obviously a white spored mushroom because that's what all this white is. And they are edible. They're real chewy, like they're real bendy and flexible.
They look like a false morel, though.
Yeah.
To some degree, yeah. Yeah, so here's a chanterelle that you might think is a white chanterelle. There are white chanterelles. There's red ones too on the East Coast. Hard to tell. It probably is washed out color-wise from the rain a week ago, or just from age. But anyway, it's still a chanterelle and still edible.
In some pretty good shape.
Mushrooms coming out of the sky here.
Just throw me mushrooms. So this is an angel wing. You find it on a dead tree or a stump or a log, and these are edible. It's not incredible, kind of like tofu. You got to add something to it. But you can oftentimes find these in massive quantities on a downed log or tree. So this is the hedgehog. Anybody else get hedgehogs? A couple people got some. The hedgehog is very similar in color to the chanterelle. The ones that are growing out here are pretty small. And on the underside of the cap, it has hedgehog spines. So that's why they call it the hedgehog. And it is a great edible. Well, actually, on this cutout, you can see the edges.
They look like gills.
Oh, yeah. Oh, so it's kind of perforated.
Yeah, well,
Looks like
it's
needles.
spiky,
Yeah.
like a hedgehog.
Okay.
This is the first false chanterelle. This is the actual false chanterelle. And it also has, kind of like the regular chanterelle, the blades running down, but they're kind of deformed or malformed. They're just kind of nobular and bunched up. And then on the top, it has a hole in the center, and all these little fibrils that are kind of peeling off. The cap is kind of peeling. This is a very small one, it's very young, and they can get very, very big. So this is the actual true false chanterelle.
Well, that's pretty.
Yeah, they get a real beautiful purple color. And these are edible, not incredible. And a lot of people were picking these. They have a bunch of red on the stem, or purpling on the stem, and a very purple cap. If you picked one that doesn't have a very purple, dark purple cap, throw it out underneath it. So when you damage the gills, it'll start oozing out milk. And this one is not the edible one. There is a milk cap that is edible, is this one. So the difference between these two.
Oh, that's edible?
You see all the zoning.
Oh, I found
the circular
a lot of
zones.
those. And we thought those weren't edible. Yeah. I saw a lot of those. And
Is that one bruising purple?
Yeah.
I thought it looked like a chanterelle. I know, that orange one.
Yeah, that one, I don't know what it is. It's gorgeous bruising. Wow. And this one isn't really milking that much.
So are you saying those two are the same or not?
Same genus. Yeah, not the same species. Lactarius because they bleed milk.
I am you and you are me. We are all each other. All the young and all the old. You are all my brother. We all live in one big land. We all play in one big band. All all the children holding hands. We are all one people.
You and I are both the same. We are all one people. Open hearts and open minds. We want to be peaceful. We all live in one big world. All us boys and all us girls. You and I are both the same. We are all one people.
I am you and you are me. We are
Is that a chanterelle?
I think so. I'm not
I think it
absolutely
is, yeah.
positive. It's a little moldy on the side. I think I'm going to cut some of it off. But
It's a nice one.
cloth or paper, right?
Yeah, either cloth or paper bags. But
How long will they last?
a good, well, depending on the age, like those ones that you have in your hand right now, you should eat soon because they're obviously older. They're all opened up.
Okay.
But a good week in the fridge.
So you put them in the fridge without drying them, or?
Yeah, just in a
Or the
paper
other
bag.
thing you can-
Oh yeah, mushrooms are actually quite nutritious. Upwards, in some mushrooms, 20% protein. They're
Really?
pretty good. Lots
Wow.
of little trace minerals and all that. And you know, a lot of them have medicinal properties, anti-cancer, anti-tumor, and they're a great, especially if you're vegetarian or whatnot, they're a great meat substitute. They call a bunch of mushrooms shrimp mushroom, lobster mushroom, chicken of the woods mushroom, partly because they taste like that or look like those meat products. And yeah, I mean, they're really good for you, health-wise and nutrition-wise.
You satisfied?
Yeah, I'm pretty satisfied.
Bark is a nonprofit group, and we've been active on Mount Hood for 10 years now, using the tools that were put in place with the National Environmental Policy Act that were intended for the public to be involved with federal actions relating to the environment.
We focus on Mount Hood National Forest, and we monitor the timber sales mostly out here. We also work on some other issues that come up about Mount Hood. There's a lot of different users of Mount Hood National Forest. People come out here to go hiking like us today. People come out here to hunt, to fish, to birdwatch, to ski. People do all sorts of things out here.
We bring folks out to the timber sales themselves so folks can have some first-hand experience on what these timber sales look like and what the agency proposes to do. We do ground truthing trainings, so we train people how to come out and how to monitor these sales to learn for themselves, how to come out and play detective in these forests and find all the details. We also do other little trainings like NEPA trainings, which is all the environmental law stuff behind how these sales work.
In the 1970s, a law was passed, the National Environmental Policy Act, after incredible hard work by many in the activist community and citizens across the country. And that act said you can't just go cutting down all the trees. We need to be able to evaluate whether this is a good thing or not.
This entire area is spotted owl dispersal habitat. 17 pairs of spotted owls are in the vicinity of all of the units that this sale encompasses. And dispersal habitat for spotted owl is habitat when a pair of owls has young. Those babies have to go somewhere because they can't live in the same area, and they would either fly through this area to find another nesting spot, or they would hunt in this area.
Bark is a group that protects the Mount Hood National Forest, the waters and wildlife and forests of Mount Hood National Forest, from destructive logging projects, from excessive road building, from anything that's a threat to these beautiful public lands that we're going to be walking through today.
And it was founded by a lawyer and a folk singer. And basically they went out to a timber sale that they didn't agree with. They wrote comments on it. They won that timber sale, and they realized, like, wow, this is powerful. We can have a say in public lands management. And from that, it went on to form Bark.
I think it's probably best to start with the basics. We are in the Mount Hood National Forest, and the Mount Hood National Forest is owned by every single taxpayer in the United States.
And this is one of the things we do is every second Sunday of the month we have a free hike to bring people actually out to the forest, to these places where there's threats to our public land, so people can walk on the ground and look at what it is that's so important about this and hopefully get inspired to be out in the forest more and also help conserve it.
Cedar tree in potentially Unit 6 that the critters, most likely bobcat, cougar, have used this tree to mark their boundaries. They put their scent on it. Definitely signs that there's been a lot of use in this area.
Over this 10-year period, BARC has led more than 120 monthly ground truthing hikes, mainly to proposed timber sales in the Mount Hood National Forest. These hikes have also formed the basis for more than 100 public access television programs, which air over local Portland channels and often outside the area, and can also be found on the internet.
Say what you want about me, but I'm a living in the green world, and I need the air to breathe.
The majority of these hikes have been to U.S. Forest Service or BLM, Bureau of Land Management timber sales in the Mount Hood National Forest, which were in some phase of the timber sale program. Some were challenged in court. Some were stopped. Some were altered and reissued, saving at least a portion of our threatened and dwindling forest habitat. And too many were logged. These hikes are led throughout the year. This provides the opportunity for BARC to witness, explore, and evaluate any potential effects of erosion, road building, and ground compaction would arise from the logging. But these hikes are not all work. BARC sponsors hikes to learn about and gather mushrooms.
And make a cut. You can see that it's got this bright red kind of bleeding area here. It's called a Lactarius, and these are edible. Some people consider them quite delicious.
To admire and learn about native wildflowers and the properties and uses of many of the medicinal plants which are so abundant in the Mount Hood National Forest.
Big broad leaves, and it's just starting to come into bud right now. The flowers, when they come out, will be kind of urn-shaped, bell-shaped, much like blueberry flowers, and indeed they are in the same plant family. Salal grows really prolifically in situations like this, like a little dry, like a little bit more of an open canopy maybe, or maybe it's a younger forest. It tolerates a little bit more dryness than like its friend the sword fern usually does, or than Oregon grape sometimes does. And Salal is great to know because the berries are pretty tasty. Some plants will have sort of mediocre berries, some plants will have really tasty berries. Those berries are great. They're high in flavonoids, which makes them very good for basically capillary integrity throughout the body. And your capillaries staying strong has implications for good circulation to your fingers and toes and throughout the body, strong lungs, good vision.
BARC has explored the beauty of nature in many forest settings, leading citizens along creeks and streams, through meadows, along paths, climbing high in the elevation and winding down into watersheds. On these hikes, BARC has encountered many animals of the forest, witnessed damage caused by careless and irresponsible recreation, and even encountered angry zombies lamenting the loss of forest habitat. Over these 10 years, BARC has also provided forums to educate the public, such as the Mount Hood Timber Sale Review held in February of 2002, and the Mount Hood Summit held at the Mazama Lodge on Mount Hood. Among other things, over the years, they have helped to organize and participate in rallies to end commercial logging in our national forest, to stop the 47-mile Palomar Pipeline clear cut. It's been a busy and eventful 10 years, and much of the thanks goes to the BARC hike leaders who volunteer their time and passion to explore and protect the forests we all love. Hike leaders choose specific timber sales to monitor, and many bring their own personal store of knowledge of plants, fungi, wildflowers, fire ecology.
There was a question earlier about why Douglas firs grow back after natural disturbances. What conditions are needed? Does anyone know? I told these guys already, but Douglas firs actually need bare mineral soil, which is the stuff that's underneath the topsoil, to grow, to germinate effectively. And they also like bright sun. And in a closed canopy forest where you just have mature forests, big Douglas firs, you don't really get a whole lot of sun fire can kill off some of those trees and open up the canopy enough that those Douglas firs can start growing back. And so that's why fire is pretty important to the life cycle out here.
And even those with an understanding of the political realities involved in protecting the environment. So thanks for your support and for helping BARC celebrate 10 years of advocating for forest protection. Whether it be organizing the monthly or other special hikes, leading seminars on government policy, or working with the community to oppose destructive extraction proposals, BARC will continue providing opportunities to experience and learn about our great national heritage, the Mount Hood National Forest.
Watching in the battle, yeah. Say what you want about me, yeah. But I'm a living in the green world, and I need the air to breathe. Some will say you gotta get your kicks